Andrew Callahan said. The Browns traded Zadarius Smith to the Lions. Zadarius Smith in a 2026 seventh, going to Detroit for a 2025 fifth and a 2026 sixth. That doesn't sound like an awful lot.
It's not, and that's the other thing. I mean, Andrew Callahan is here, and he can speak to this better than everyone else in this room, but we're talking about the bits and pieces that may or may not be available for trade for the Patriots. Right. If that trade brings you a fifth and a sixth, you have nothing even remotely close to draft pick compensation.
He had Myles Garrett on the other side, so we'll see. But Andrew Callahan is brought to you by DN Van Lines. Moving your home or business and need a recommendation from someone? How about almost the entire staff here at the Sports Hub and the Sports Hub itself? Yes, they moved the station to dnvanlines.com. Andrew is in studio, as he always is. He's very kind. What's up with that? Did you think that's what do you think of the return that Cleveland got in that deal?
Less than I expected, but I think it speaks not to Zadarius Smith or the Lions or anything like that. It's the market feels like a buyer's market. You got 9 teams right now that have 2 wins or fewer. So everyone's like, okay, take what you want. And you get to be like, oh, well, no, I'll shop around.
Do you think Dallas will end up being a seller?
No.
Even if Prescott's hurt?
No, I don't. I think Jerry Jones has irrational confidence in his team. He put it together. What could have gone wrong? He's Jerry Jones. He's Hall of Famer. So he'll look and be like, we'll do better than this. He's got faith in Mike McCarthy that I think everyone outside of Mike McCarthy's household doesn't have. And that's just what it is. Like, I think he believes that they'll win regardless of whatever's going on.
Which seems kind of foolish, but
seems like an 82-year-old man that's crossed that invisible line.
I also don't know what difference anything they do is going to make for this season. So,
the Cowboys?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, he's an oil man, right? Like, he's holding on to what he used to have, whether that's Super Bowls or his fortune, which will last much longer than oil will. But like, that's a guy who's done business the way he knows, and he's going to keep doing it that way.
That's why we get a drill, baby, drill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, baby, I'm all for fracking.
Here we go.
Fracking and fapping. Mm-hmm. All right. Andrew Callahan, what did you think of the team not going for 2 after the tremendous Drake Maye play?
I didn't have strong feelings about it either way, whether you want to look at the analytics, and Mike Reese, I think, gave these to you guys yesterday. It's pretty much down the middle. My choice would have been to go for 2, because the decision in my mind is, okay, what's more likely? That we get 2 yards here one time, just get 2 yards, or play at least another 5, 6, maybe 7, or 10 minutes against a team that's been better than us all game, has more talent, and is not turning the ball over. Lo and behold, they chose to play more, and they lost.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit yesterday. I just think for this point in the season, it would have been a boost, and you have very little to lose by losing the game on a failed 2-point conversion. The record speaks for itself at this point, and I thought that would have been fun. That would have been cool. That would have been something that you can rally behind a little bit. Had it not worked out, oh well, probably wasn't going to work out anyway, if we're being honest with ourselves.
Yeah, and what does the message send, right? Like, the deeper we get into the season, the less we talk about wins and losses. It's culture, it's locker room, it's Drake Maye's development, yada, yada. That message would have said from Jerod Mayo to his players, which I think he feels he delivers this anyway. Hey, I believe in you. We're going to be aggressive. Like, remember the stuff we heard after week 1? We're going to run the ball, and you got to stop it. The league has been very okay with that kind of messaging and stopping the run, but there were more options than just give it up the middle to Ramondre Stevenson if you were to go for 2. I know they had a play ready. Jerod said it. I think that would have been a great message, and that's what I would have done in that situation.
But it speaks to what kind of coach Jerod Mayo wants to be, and we talked about this yesterday also. Not that, you follow anyone's blueprint necessarily, but looking at the Lions, there are a couple of teams in the league right now that you would want to, have what they have. And they had that aggressive mentality from the jump. And it didn't work out in the first season for Dan Campbell. He had an abysmal record. And, the people thought he was being foolish and he was being reckless with some of these play calls. But if you start it early, and if Mayo wants to have a long career here, you assert yourself as the guy that, as you just said, Andrew, said you were going to be at the start of the season. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be this type of team. Okay, go do it. And even when it fails, that's okay, because that lets the team know when we do this, we're not going to get it right all the time, but it takes away some of that anxiety for when you do it the next time. For the next time, when you go for it on a 4th down when people wouldn't expect you to. When you go for 2 at the end of the game, trying to win it as opposed to taking your chances in overtime. Get used to that feeling. put other teams on notice that this is who we're going to be. Win or lose, pass or fail, we're going to be that aggressive team, and you're going to have to deal with this in the future as long as you're head coach there.
And it's interesting you bring up Dan Campbell because Jerod Mayo does the same thing. Like when the season first started to really sour, I think it was after the Niners game or the Dolphins game. He goes, when I look at other head coaches in their first year, Dan Campbell, took his lumps. Kyle Shanahan did the same thing. The difference, though, in terms of game management, if we talk about kind of replicating that part of the Lions program, which has since been backed, driven, fueled by the best draft classes in the NFL last year.
We talked about that, yeah. But there's other teams that have drafted well that don't have that kind of success.
And Dan Campbell is an analytics guy, which leads to that aggression. And I don't know. And when you listen to Jerod talk about analytics, he always says, okay, well, you have the information. The model doesn't take into account the weather. And that's true in certain situations. But I do think there's something to be said of that aggressive mentality. There's a gap between, I think, what Jerod wants to give off and portray and what Dan Campbell is doing and living, winning or losing with how aggressive he's being, even in the NFC Championship game last year.
Yeah, it's much to maybe his fault in that case, but it got them.
His neighbor's chagrin.
One more thing.
Jesus. Yeah, my friend has a kid that goes to school with this kid. It was a whole scene.
Oh, I bet. Well, one more thing on that final play before they kick the extra point. You pointed out, and the first time I saw it was on your Twitter feed, Andrew, that Hunter Henry went out the back of the end zone and had the wherewithal to stay out of the play because he didn't want to get the illegal touching penalty had the ball gone to him. So Drake Maye manages to complete that pass, not only with one less receiver,
10 on 11,
but with Hunter Henry's guy realizing what he was doing and comes up and joins the rush. So he had another rusher coming at him when he finally got loose and completed that pass. It makes it all that more amazing that he was able to pull it off.
Yeah, that was the second longest and second craziest play in the NFL until I had watched the clip over again from the All-22, and exactly what you said. Because when defenders are in pass coverage at the back of the end zone, it behooves them to knock the receivers out because then they can't be the first to touch the ball. It'll be illegal touching, and that's it. So Hunter Henry could have gotten a massage back there. He could have had a picnic. He could have taken a leak. Like, he was standing, still watching. 7 more seconds go by, and his defender, as you said, joins the rush. So the Titans are able to have one-on-one coverage on everybody else, and then at that point bring more rushers than the Patriots can block. And that guy guarding Hunter Henry was the one who delivered the hit on Drake Maye, playing 10 and 11, held the ball for 12 seconds. The play goes for almost 15, and they score anyway, which means, all due respect to Jane Daniels, this was the craziest play of the year now.
Yeah, that's better. That play that Maye pulled off is better than
insane.
the Jane Daniels Hail Mary.
And so
it's much better.
It gets to the point that, I mean, if you're a Patriots fan, look, this team's not talented. It's not going to win anything. It's not the wins and losses, but Andrew, am I being naive to think that Maye is showing himself to be everything that you need physically from a quarterback in terms of his ability to avoid the rush, extend plays, his ability to run? After watching stiffs on other teams for the rest of the season, just accept sacks, it's nice to see a kid do that. And he seems composed, a little like it doesn't seem like the moments are too big for him. What did you read on him early?
That's the biggest thing to me. Like, the tools. Anyone sitting in this chair or on TV or podcast or writing about Drake Maye before the draft would say he's the modern prototype. You got the arm, you got the legs, the mobility, his second reaction playmaking, all that stuff. What we didn't know is how a 22-year-old kid surrounded by the worst offensive talent in the AFC, maybe the NFL, would react when it's all on his shoulders. And they ask him to do things like he did Sunday. 95% of our total yards, can you do that for us? Yes. Now, granted, he threw the pick at the end, but there is nothing too big for this kid. He is not rattled, whether it's under physical pressure or the weight of the moment. And we'll see how long that lasts, because I think there's a little concern here for me when you look at his last season at North Carolina, similarly surrounded by bad talent. He tended to play hero ball, something that they've coached out of him for most of his time in the NFL so far. But you look at overtime, it's a deep throw down the sideline, low percentage play. It's a scramble. Then it's another deep throw over the middle, late to Kayshon Boutte, gets picked off. I hope he does not feel too much pressure to do more for this team because the lack of support they've given him, and have that lead to bad habits, because that's how you get the worst out of this kid based on his environment. We're a ways away from there, but if you think about your mentality, and there were 2.5 minutes, like the clock factored in there, that's the danger for me, because he did that his last season in North Carolina.
Do you have the coaching to avoid that happening?
Or was that the plan in terms of, was that Van Pelt's idea? Do you think that, I mean, going deep those 2 times, the interception and the pass to Henry.
Well, and let's be clear, he can do that. You know,
Right.
He was asked about this yesterday and said, "Do you regret it?" No, I want to take a shot, and that's the beauty of having a guy like that. Again, you can make plays that the Patriots did not make the entirety of Mac Jones' 3 seasons here. His first touchdown to Kayshon Boutte longer than any pass completed through the air than Mac ever completed in New England. But aside from that, I do think they can coach it out of him. It's just going to be a matter of what can they do to support him in the meantime. And again, I don't think he's going to play reckless, but there's a line. He's got to figure out his limits. That's what this season is for. What are my limits? How can I push them? And then make sure I also don't step over the line when the game is on the line.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.